Hey there everyone, what's up? Back today with another impressions video, and today I am talking about Exstetra here on the PS Vita. This is also on the 3DS, but I'm playing on the Vita. And Exstetra here, very simply, to put it very simply, is a kissing RPG, I guess. That's like the best way to explain it. That doesn't explain anything though. So, first, I guess we'll talk about what that actually means. So this is actually, it's a turn-based dungeon crawler, essentially. It's not dissimilar looking to a Tales game, actually. It's got that same kind of Tales character look. If you look at the cover here, you can kind of get what I mean. The characters look very Tales-ish, but the battle system is not like Tales at all. It's actually a turn-based battle system that kind of relies heavily on combos. It's a little strange. It's not your standard kind of turn-based battle system, and if you play it that way, you'll find the game incredibly difficult. But I'll get into that later when I talk about the difficulty. But in general, turn-based RPG with a kind of Tales-ish look and a kissing element. The kissing part is part of the main story, where the main character is something called a prisma, and through his kiss he can make certain people become prisma knights, which is like the people that help him save the world for whatever reason. But that's the general story. Anyway, you're trying to save this world that you've been transported to, and in essence, by saving that world, you save your real world. That's, it's not like a incredibly new kind of RPG idea. I mean, the main character has amnesia. It's not really it's not like incredibly straying from what you'd be used to in a standard kind of RPG, and a lot of that is true for this game. It tends to have a lot of standard RPG elements, but it does a few things that are interesting. So, what I want to talk about though at first is the battle system, because it's quite different from your standard battle system, like you'd expect from something like just a regular turn-based RPG where you just select your attack and go. It's not exactly like that. I mean, it is that, but the way everything plays out is quite different, because all the characters have, their own special weapons that they can use. And what you have to do is kind of sync up your team to work together as a team. So unlike, each character has a role, and you can set it up that way where each character kind of has a role, but you have to fit that role into the way your party attacks and the way the game works, or you get just wiped. There's no other way to say it. You just get destroyed. And what'll happen is what I see with this game is that you have to kind of take your characters and kind of form the system around how you upgrade them and how they interact with each other. And then from there, you kind of create a damage-dealing party that can actually fight battles. Because when you first start the game, the battles are not easy. The beginning of this game was actually pretty difficult. And only because the system is quite different from what you'd expect, and you don't have a lot of ways to upgrade at first. As the game progresses and you get more characters and you get more items, you can upgrade a lot more, and then it becomes a lot more easy. To the point where the beginning was a real struggle, and the end was super easy for me, because I had kind of customized this party that was killing the bosses in one turn. So it was the kind of thing where in the beginning where you expect it to be easy, it wasn't. And in the end where you expect it to be hard, it wasn't. So it's got that element to it where you can kind of break the system by using the combos effectively. But in the beginning you don't have many options. And the beginning actually, it's not that bad that way, because it forces you to get good at learning how to kind of exploit the system. Otherwise, you can't progress. Like, you'll never get past the first boss if you don't understand the way the battle system works. And I think that's a good thing. It does a nice thing. It made the game more interesting than you're just like a kind of standard game with kissing. Um, but going into that, the kissing part is part of the battle system, and the way each character has their own kind of like special attacks that they can do in the battles that are like some huge damage dealing attacks, or you know attacks that will do a lot of damage to all enemies. It's all stuff like that, but each of them requires taking part in this kind of kissing mini game, and it's kind of like you're building up a meter by kissing. So like you're just kind of filling up this meter, and then when you get to a certain spot, you have to let go of the button at a certain point to get like a good rating. It's almost, it's pretty simple. But as you do it, like if you get it higher and higher, you'll be able to kind of get into like button mash mode, where you can just mash up some levels and then get it to max towards the end. And it makes it makes the attacks more powerful. So the kissing element I want to talk about a bit actually in this, because when I'm describing it, you're thinking like, oh, well, your main character is this guy, and you only see this girl on the thing, so you're just assuming that like, you've got this party of girls, and the game takes like the ridiculous measures to make you not use girls. Like, with the second you find the first character, and it's like this kind of awkward thing where you have to kiss to make her into one of your knights, and it's like all weird and awkward, and you expect it's going to be like that for the rest of the game, where you just like keep finding these like your harem to fill out your party, and then the second character you find is this dude, and it makes the game, it totally added a new extra layer to the game, because like you have to do the kissing minigame at first, and you think, oh, okay, it's kind of goofy, but it's just like this kissing minigame. And then like if you're the kind of person that would be like uncomfortable with like I guess like homosexual relationships, like this game is totally not for you, because there's way more man kissing than woman kissing, I think, for the most part. Because, and I say that because like you don't, in the normal battles, the normal kind of enemies that you encounter, it's not really necessary to use the kissing thing, because most of the time you'll be able to just beat the stuff with no problem. Or not necessarily no problem. If you don't get the system, all the battles are going to be hard. But once you kind of get the system down, you can, you'll find that the regular enemies aren't posing much of a problem, so you're not really using the kissing element. But then when you get to the bosses, partway through the game, there's this kind of thing that the bosses do, and they spit out this like AoE attack that hits everybody, and it's an attack, like a gas attack, that only affects women. So like you'll find that like every time you go to a boss, like all the women in the party get wiped like really quickly, because this gas attack does like 50% of their health or whatever every time it hits, and it does like 5% to men. And you'll find that like no matter what boss it is, like except the end boss, who doesn't really do it, but pretty much every boss past like the second or third boss is like spamming this gas attack every turn. So you pretty much are forced to use men for the whole part. So like you're going through the game, and you have like a lot of times where like if you're not using that kiss thing in the first round, the woman you can use it with is dead. And up until the halfway point, you can't kiss the other guys. They don't want you to kiss them, so you can't get their special attacks. So it's kind of this thing where like the game forces you to really use those special attacks quick, or not use them at all. And then later on in the game, it forces you to almost always kiss dudes. So, I mean, it's not just that, but if you're not using the attack right away, you want to save it for like something later, like a follow-up when you're low on MP or whatever. You're going to be kissing dudes. And I think like if that makes you uncomfortable, this is probably not going to be a fun game for you. This is the kind of thing where like it's actually interesting. This game has the option to turn off the kissing minigame by sex. So you can turn off the kissing minigame for men and leave it on for women, or vice versa. Or you can turn off both. You don't have to do it at all. but it's actually it's pretty interesting, like the way that the game is set up. Like you think going into it that it's just going to be this kind of like um I don't know. Oh my god. Objectifying women, blah blah blah. It's gonna be like that, but it's not really, because like a lot of the time you're only kissing dudes. So and it's always awkward. Like it's awkward for the characters and it's awkward for you. Like I don't know. It's just always awkward. Um, so that out of the way, like it's not it's not a bad game. It's not a great game either. It's not something like incredibly spectacular. Like I'm gonna say, run out and get it now. You have to play Exstetra, but it does have like kind of cliche characters and a not very interesting story. But the way that the characters interact is kind of interesting. It's fun. I don't want to say it's interesting because it's not like I'm gripped by what they're saying. It's more just like they interact well, so it's kind of fun to play it. They all have like interesting reactions and say funny things and goofy things happen. Um, but none of the characters are gonna like blow you away with their uniqueness. But the thing with this is like with this type of game with these type of characters, you think like it's gonna wear out really quickly, and I think the game realizes that because this game was short. It was like it's a RPG. Like you expect it to be like 30, 40 hours, but this game I beat in less than 20. My save file actually says 15 hours, but that doesn't include like the last session I played where I had to do the last dungeon and fight the boss. So maybe add an hour or so to that time. So maybe 16 hours, maybe a little more, 16 and a half at most. It wasn't that long, and I think that's actually a good thing. It works in the kind of benefits of this game, the kind of the good points category, because any longer, and I think the characters would have started to lose their charm, and the story is kind of paper thin. So like, there's not really much more you can go with on it. I mean, there's like a twist or two, but it's nothing like gonna blow you away. But what happens though in the end is that the game is actually pretty fun. The way like you actually kind of have to think about the battles. You can't auto battle. Well, you can auto battle, but I suggest not auto battling ever in this. It's really not a good way to fight anything in this game because the auto battle is like there's two selections for auto battle and both of them are terrible. You've got like full out attack, which is like the computer will auto battle you using all your strongest attacks all the time. In this, like, no matter what you fight, it kills all of your MP. Like, you lose all your ability to do attacks for the next battle. If you want to fight in the next battle, you don't have a chance because you have no MP left. You can't do any special moves. You can't heal. You can't do anything without it. And the computer will just spam all of that right in the first, like, 2 rounds of the battle if you auto battle on the all out, going all out. And the other auto battle is focus on healing. And what'll happen is you'll find that the first guy will attack, and then the enemies will attack, and then you'll just spend the rest of the time healing, and you'll never kill anything. You'll just waste all your MP healing every round. And that happens. It's just like both of the auto battle options are not optimal. So you'll find that like that's kind of a sticking point on this game where like every battle you have to kind of just mash even if you just I mean for even stuff you can be, you just kind of have to mash the button through it, like keep hitting circle until you've hit a just regular attack for everybody. It's not like a terrible annoyance, but they could have just added that into the auto battle system, which they didn't. So that was kind of a negative point on this game. Um, that being said, it wasn't incredibly difficult past the first like 20% of the game. Like once you get a lot of items throughout the game, like you can get a ton of there's an upgrade system for the weapons, so you have each character has their own specialized weapon, and you get runes that you can attach to the weapons to give them bonus. Like and your armor too. You get runes for those, but you can add like, you know, add status effects, various status effects, or you can add like better chance to critical, better chance to hit, knockback effect or something onto your weapon, or like follow up attack, or revenge attack, or critical attack. You've got all these options to add onto your weapons, and what'll happen is if you as you go through the game, when you sell your items, you'll get all the runes that you put on the item back, so you can put them on your next weapon. And that is it's really cool because like the way you're kind of, building up your weapons is that like through the way you play the game. So if you search around and you find a bunch of runes, or you do a lot of battles and you get some runes that you get lucky with runes, I guess, you'll have a really kind of it'll help everybody because you don't lose those upgrades if you upgrade them on one weapon and then you just find a new weapon 10 seconds later. You can just sell the other weapon and get your stuff back and just add it to the new weapon, and it feels like a continuous upgrade cycle even though you're getting different weapons. And that was I think a good point. And the runes are interesting because you have a lot of ones, but like once you get towards the end, like if you have been collecting the runes, you'll have like, I had like a Reaver team. It was like ridiculous because, let me explain how ridiculous it was at the end. I had two characters that were linked via an item, like a ring, and every time one of those characters attacked, the other character would attack. It was just like a follow-up attack automatically because they would each have to wear the ring. And then like what you would, I had each of those characters maxed on follow-up attack and revenge attack and counter attack and multiple attack. And you would go through that and you would have this thing where like it would just be this ridiculous kind of chain of events. So like you'd get, and if you do a lot of attacks, you get this kind of tension up mode where you'll be able to do two attacks. And you'll see that like, the first character will come out and attack. And if his runes go off for multiple attacks, he'll attack like up to 10 times, or up to 6 times is the max. So up to 6 times he can attack. And then what'll happen is if you attack that, the next guy will come in, the linked with the ring will come in. And if he gets his 6 attacks, like you've done like essentially 12 attacks in one turn, like just for one character. And if that guy has 2 attacks, you could potentially do up to 24 attacks with one character in one round of that character only. You could, when it goes to the next character, you could potentially do 48 attacks between 2 characters in one turn, which is off. I mean, it would take like some crazy luck, I think, to get that many attacks, but you could do it. It's possible. And when I went to fought the last boss in the first round, I must have got 36 attacks, I think, on the first 2 characters, because I killed the end boss, the first phase of the end boss at least, in half of a round. And it has like a preset cutscene where like I killed the boss before he attacked anybody in my team. Like it was like half a round, literally. Like the boss was dead. And like it doesn't die, but it goes into this cutscene where it's like, oh, this boss is too hard, what are we gonna do? And I'm like, he didn't even get to attack me. So like it was that kind of situation where like you kind of can break the system. But overall, like if you're not gonna really think about it all that much, or you're not gonna kind of be very thorough in searching the dungeons, I could see it being a bit more difficult. But the way it was, I kind of broke it by the end. And comparing that to the way it was in the beginning, it was like super easy. So like it has this like weird kind of opposite version of a difficulty curve where like it starts off really hard and just goes low and lower and lower, whereas like you'd expect, like in most games, it starts the opposite way where it starts a little bit easy and goes hard. Not so in this game. But yeah, I've already talked about this for 20 minutes. It wasn't. If it sounds interesting, I'd recommend it. It's pretty cheap. I mean, I bought it new for like $15 or something. It's probably even cheaper than that now. And it's not a bad game. I think like you could probably get through the whole game without knowing any Japanese, really. The story isn't like super necessary or anything. And the parts you would have to know is just like what do the items do. I mean, you could probably figure most of that out. So yeah, it's probably a pretty easy game to import and play, but also, it's short. It's got a kind of interesting battle system. It's got some interesting things going on with it, and it's cheap. So I guess I could recommend it on that note. But other than that, if it sounds interesting, get it. If you're like on the fence, it's probably not something you're gonna thoroughly enjoy. But if you like the concept, it sounds awesome to you. Like, you'll probably like it. So yeah, that's about it. 20 minutes of rambling about Exstetra here on the PS Vita. I don't know how the 3DS version differs, but it probably doesn't. Oh yeah, I forgot. There are multiple endings to this game. I didn't play through it multiple times though. I'm not sure what the multiple endings entail, but I think it depends on like the kind of bonds you grow with the characters. Because I had a choice where like I unlocked super secret special attacks for some characters, but not all the characters, and only the ones that I had unlocked the special attacks from, I had like a kind of choice near the end where I could choose like which one I wanted to be with or whatever. And it's probably that. I'm guessing that like the character who shows up in the end has like a relationship with you at the end. It's not like a relationship. It's just like a final scene with that character. And I'm assuming I don't actually know this, but I'm assuming that the other character will be in that like kind of final separate scene. Just my thoughts. I guess I could look it up, but I'm not going to do that right now. So, whatever. Anyway, here is the end of the video. That's it for Exstetra on the PS Vita and 3DS. So, yeah. Hope you guys found that informative or interesting in some way. But yeah, until next time, see ya.